Hello everyone, welcome to English Kyan. This is Shivashish Das. Today I have come up with the chapter, The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet is prescribed for the students of class 12 and it's the first chapter of the book Flamingo. So before we start, make sure that you have hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel. And if you are watching this on my Facebook page, make sure that you have liked and followed the page. So the last lesson, it was written by Alphonse Daudet, who is a very famous French novelist and short story writer. This lesson is basically set on the backdrop of the Franco-Prussian War. It was a very famous war and France was defeated by the Prussian forces. So after the defeat of France, an order came from Berlin, and in that order it was stated that only German language could be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. Alsace and Lorraine were the two districts of France. So naturally it had brought about a very serious change in the life of people, because the people of Alsace and Lorraine, they were deprived of their mother tongue, that is French. It will also have a great impact on us too if we are asked not to read and learn our own mother tongue. So we will see that it will bring about a great change in the life of people. Here Alphonse Daudet will discuss two basic themes in this chapter. The first theme is the impact of war. We all know that war has a great impact on a country, both financially and socially. We will see that how war affects the life of people, how war affects the overall thinking, the overall attitude of people, and we will also see that how linguistic identity is very important. We may speak in any language, we may have any language as our mother tongue, and this mother tongue is actually a kind of identity to us. We don't often realize it that our mother tongue is an identity to us, but if that identity is snatched away from us, we will feel that a void is created, something is missing in our life. So in this chapter we will see how this mother tongue is actually an identity to us and we often ignore it, but when we are deprived of that identity, it will create a great void for us. So in this short story we will find two major characters. One is Franz, who is a little schoolboy, and another one is M. Hamel, who is a very strict school teacher. He is a teacher of the French language. So this story is narrated by this boy Franz, who is a very little boy. So the story starts when Franz sets out for school. He was very scared that day for two reasons. The first reason was that he was very late for school and he feared that his teacher M. Hamel, he would scold him. The second reason for his fear was that day M. Hamel was going to ask them a few questions on the rules of participle, and the worst thing about it was that Franz even did not know the first word about the participle. So he was very scared. So when he set out for school, initially he thought that he should bunk his school and he should roam about, because it was a very beautiful day. It was a very warm and sunny day. Birds were chirping at the edge of the wood and the Prussian soldiers were also drilling at the back of the sawmill. It's a very fascinating thing for little children to watch the soldiers drilling. So Franz also thought for a moment that he should bunk school and he should probably roam about and enjoy the things that were there out there. But he also resisted himself. He thought that no, I have started on for school, so I should go to school instead of roaming about. So as he was going, he noticed that there was a crowd, there was a huge crowd in front of the bulletin board which was placed in front of the town hall. But he did not stop there. Usually whenever we see a large gathering of people, we are curious sometimes to go and have a look at the matter. But Franz did not stop there, because he knew that from the last 2 years all the bad news had only come from that bulletin board. News about the lost battles or orders from the commanding officer, all those bad news had come from that bulletin board, and he did not expect anything better this time. So he thought that it must have been a bad news, so he did not show any interest in going there and having a look at what was displayed in that bulletin board. So as he was crossing the bulletin board, he heard the voice of Watcher, who was a blacksmith. He was standing there in front of the bulletin board along with his apprentice. That man, Watcher, he told Franz not to rush to school so much, because he would reach school in plenty of time. Means he did not need to go so fast to school, because he would reach school in time. At that moment, Franz thought that probably that man, a watcher, he was pulling his leg. It sometimes happens that whenever we are late, people who are known to us, they tell us, you don't need to rush so much. Actually, they pull our legs. So Similarly, Franz thought that watcher was making fun of him, so he did not reply anything to him and he went on in his course to the school. Generally, it happened that every day before the commencement of school, there was a very huge noise that could be heard out from the street. Generally, it happens that before the start of school, there is a huge noise of pupils talking together. They might be revising their lessons in unison. It is a very common thing in school. Similarly, the same thing happened every day in the school of Franz also. Before the commencement of school, every day students could be heard making noises. They would be revising their lessons in unison, and they would also close and open their desks, and it would create a sound, it would create a commotion. So Franz thought that today, as he was very late, so he thought that when he would reach school, he would find the similar noisy situation, the noisy environment, and he would take advantage of that environment and he would secretly slip into his classroom. He entered the classroom very secretly without being noticed by his teacher, and he would not be scolded. But when Franz reached there, it was a very different situation. That day, he felt that everything was silent. He could not hear any sound from the street. When he was a bit far away from his school, he did not hear any sound. So he thought that it was a very strange situation. So when he came nearer, he observed through the window that all his classmates, they were sitting at their respective places, and his teacher M. Hamel, he was there in the class. He was present in the class. So it was a very dangerous situation for Franz, because he had to take the permission of his teacher and enter the classroom, and he also knew that as his teacher was so strict, he might scold Franz for being late that day. But that day was meant to be a strange one, because when Franz reached school and when he asked his teacher for permission to enter the classroom, his teacher M. Hamel did not scold him that day. Usually he was a very strict man, but that day something strange happened. He did not scold Franz at all. He just told Franz that, yes, come in Franz, we are going to start without you, so quickly rush to your place. Franz was very much relieved. He did not look at anything else, and he quickly reached his seat and he gathered himself and he became a bit relaxed. So when he reached his seat, he noticed that there was something strange about that class that day. First he saw that his teacher M. Hamel, he had put on his special clothes. He had put on those clothes which he would usually wear on some special occasions like inspection days. So he saw that day his teacher had put on those beautiful clothes, those special clothes. Another strange thing which Franz noticed was that some elderly people of the village, some retired people like the postmaster or the mayor, they were sitting at the back of the classroom. They were sitting on those seats which generally remained empty. So Franz felt that there was something strange about that class that day. As he was thinking about all those things, suddenly M. Hamel mounted his chair and he announced something. He said that an order had come from Berlin according to which only German language could be taught in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine, which meant that from the next day, French language could not be taught in those schools. That is, their mother tongue could not be taught in those schools. These words were a shock to Franz. When he heard these words, he couldn't believe his ears, because he had never expected such a news. He always felt that he had plenty of time to learn the French language, but now such a time had come that French language could not be taught anymore and he would not be able to learn it anymore. So he felt very bad. Now he realized that why those people had gathered in front of the bulletin board. They had only gathered there to read the news. And he also understood why that watcher had asked him not to rush to school, because he also knew that French would not be taught in school anymore from the next day. As he was thinking about all this, suddenly Franz heard his name being called by his teacher. M. Hamel announced Franz's name so that Franz could recite the rules of participles, but he did not know even the first word about that participles rule. So he was very nervous. He wished if he could recite all the rules at one go without committing a single mistake, but that would not happen. He fumbled on the very first word and he stood there holding on to his desk, and he feared that M. Hamel might scold him like other days, because M. Hamel was a very strict man and he would always scold people if they were unable to perform well in their studies. But that day M. Hamel did not scold Franz. He even said that Franz should not be blamed for this alone. Means Franz was not only responsible for not learning his lessons, in fact his parents were also responsible for this performance of Franz, because His parents were not very much concerned about their son's studies. In fact, they wanted to send him to the mill so that he could go and earn a bit money. Similarly, M. Hamel also blamed himself for Franz's inability to learn French, because he said that whenever he wanted to go on a holiday, whenever he wanted to go on fishing, he gave the children a holiday and he went out for fishing. On many other days, he sent Franz to water his plants. So he said that Franz was not the only one who should be held responsible for his performance. It was the fault of all those people. It was a combined fault. Then M. Hamel went on to speak about the beauty of the French language. He said that French language was one of the most logical and the clearest and the most beautiful language in the world. Means he held the French language in a very high esteem. Then he began the grammar lesson, and strangely that day Franz could understand everything that was being taught to him. Generally, he was a very weak student. He did not like the French language. He never understood anything that was being taught to him. But that day, strangely, he could understand the things very easily. He mentioned that probably that day M. Hamel was teaching everything very nicely. He was teaching everything with more patience. And probably that day Franz himself was more committed to understand the things, so he was able to understand everything very nicely. He also said that M. Hamel was teaching them in such a way as if he wanted to give everything which he had, everything which he knew about the French language to his pupils at one stroke before he left the school the next day. After the grammar lesson, M. Hamel then arranged a writing lesson for them, writing activity. He provided them new copies on which it was written Franz Alsace in a very beautiful handwriting, and Franz said that it seemed like the flags were everywhere in their classroom. Those copies seemed like flags to him. He said that in every desk he could see that there were flags of their district, of their country. And that day, strangely, the classroom was also very much quiet. Everyone was motivated to give their best because it was the last lesson. They would no longer get the chance to learn or read their mother tongue again ever. So everyone wanted to get the best out of the last lesson. They wanted to give it their all. Everyone was busy in writing. And whenever Franz lifted his eyes and looked at M. Hamel, he felt very sorry because he could see that M. Hamel was observing everything with passionate eyes. He was looking at everything as if he wanted to capture the glimpse of everything in his mind. Because M. Hamel had been a teacher there for a very long time. He had been a teacher there for long 40 years. So he was very much attached to this place. He had grown old there. So he was looking at each and everything that was there in the classroom as if he wanted to capture it in his mind. So after their writing lesson, it was now the time of the children to chant their alphabet. Along with the children that day, those elderly people who had come and they were sitting at the back seat of the classroom, they also began to chant the alphabet with the kids. It was a bit a funny situation, but it was also an emotional moment because those people, they had come there to pay respect to their mother tongue, and they were also a bit sorry because they had not paid much attention to their mother tongue. That day they had come there to pay respect to their mother tongue and to read along with those little children, and they had also come there to pay respect to M. Hamel, who had done so much for the mother tongue. They all were chanting the alphabet with the little kids, the grown-up people. When they were chanting the alphabets and they were doing it in a very trembling voice, it was a very funny moment and it was also a very emotional moment at the same time. Franz said that he did not remember much about the French language, but he could remember his last lesson very well. He could remember each and everything that had happened that day. As they were doing all these things, the church clock struck 12 and it was the time for the class to end. When the church bell had struck 12, the Prussian soldiers were also returning from their drill and they were playing onto their trumpets and they were going beside the school. It seemed that it was a sign from the Prussian soldiers to the French people that now your time is over, now we will start dominating your place and you'll have to act according to us. So after the church clock had struck 12, it was the time for the class to end and M. Hamel stood up. He wanted to say something to his students. He wanted to say something for the last time, but he was not able to do so. He felt choked. Words were not coming out of his mouth. So he turned towards the blackboard. He took a piece of chalk and with all his might, with all his power, he wrote, "Vive la France" on the board. Vive la France means long live France. He wanted their country to reach new heights of glory. So after writing this, he could not utter even a single word. He leaned against the wall and he just made a gesture with his hand as if to indicate that class is over, you may go now. He was so emotional at that moment that words could not come out of his mouth. So he just made a gesture and he signaled everyone to go as the class was over. So in this lesson we see how war impacted the life of common people and how our linguistic identity is such a thing that we sometimes ignore it, but when we feel that it is being taken away from us, we feel a void in our lives. So from this lesson we must learn that we should pay importance to our mother tongue also, because it is actually our identity. No doubt we should learn all the other languages, but we should always keep our mother tongue in high esteem. We should always respect it, and we should try and motivate others to also speak in our mother tongue. So this is all about the chapter. I hope you were able to understand. Still, if you have any doubts, leave your questions in the comment section below. So this is all for today. See you the next time with another video. Until then, keep learning and keep watching English Gyan. Thank you.